afternoon and welcome to the County Commissioners meeting of February 15th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'll join us, we'll take a moment to remember all of our troops who have served our country, both here and abroad, and especially for those who gave their lives. Thank you. Well, a topic about, is there any public comment? Do we remember to ask for that? Now, hearing none, we will move on to our agenda item, which is a review of our presentation to the Assembly of Delegates today on the fiscal 2013 operating and capital budget for the county. And Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Your bailiwick.
I do have the final form of the letter, too, for you guys to sign, so I'll pass that on to you. We can deliver that to the Assembly at the same time. And I made some copies of the presentation, so I have those for the Assembly, too. So you see, once again, it's that time of year when we deliver the budget to the Assembly of Delegates, and so I put together a little presentation as I have over the past few years, which contains the following kind of your philosophy and direction on this budget. So there's a couple of slides that you'll see on that, and just a quick overview of the revenues and expenditures, and then just a little bit of the highlights in the budget, sort of department by department. So really, there's sort of three things I think that we can talk about in the 2013 budget, because it is tighter. It's down 5.6% from this year's budget, and that mostly is in the areas of the deeds revenues and the business revenues from the Registry of Deeds. But there's really three focus, I think, that we will have in the budget. There's this Regional Umbrella Services Center. We've put some money in there to at least begin, focus on providing those umbrella services that are going to come about as part of the sort of Open Cape opportunities, I guess is the way to put it. I think we maintain the existing regional services that we offer. We aren't laying anybody off. We're not cutting any positions back. We're able to kind of continue to do some of the programs that we currently offer. I'll talk about those a little bit. And then there's a couple of other regional efforts just that we should mention that we're still continuing to focus on. So the first one, and I don't know if when we get over there you guys want to talk about this, is this whole idea of a Regional Umbrella Services Center. It's not quite fair to say it's a spin-off of Open Cape, but when you do Open Cape, there's some opportunities that are presented. And I think as we see the Regional Umbrella Services Center, this will allow us to do some things regionally, especially in the IT and IT sectors through the Regional Services Center. So it does provide support for kind of new regional initiatives made feasible by Open Cape. Hopefully it will enhance regional collaboration in the technology field, both in terms of IT service and support and applications. And that's one of the things that we hope to do is sort of identify and implement what these applications might be going out there in the future. The e-billing application that has been looked at and people have applied for a grant for is one of those types of things. And maybe it'll be the first one coming online. So secondly, in terms of maintaining regional services, I just highlight some of the ones. That's certainly not an exhaustive list, but I tried to highlight some of the important ones that we see out there. The Shellfish and Marine Program, we used to get quite a bit of money from the state, almost $100,000 for procuring shellfish seed. We don't get that anymore, so we've been continuing to put money in the budget. Not quite $100,000, but I think we've got $35,000 in the budget, $35,000 in the budget for that for 2013. The Regional Household Hazardous Waste Collections, that's an important program, keeps a lot of hazardous waste out of the waste stream, mercury, all kinds of hazardous wastes that people have in their homes. And We do regional collection efforts. We work with the towns to do regional collections. There is some money in the budget for health department equipment for the lab. I did want to identify that there's no additional funding in the 2013 budget for the lab relocation. That's a question that may come up. So we'll say that right up front. We do have the supplemental before the assembly, and I think they're meeting later this afternoon on that, but we didn't put any other additional money in the budget for that. It should be pretty much done, or at least significantly completed by the time July 1st rolls around.
Are you going over to that meeting this afternoon?
Yeah, I think it's 3:30, right?
3:30.
So they continued the hearing, because I didn't make it. George was there, but he couldn't answer a couple of questions that they had.
That's right. Yes, I remember.
We continue human service collaboration and coordination, and I should also mention the human service budget. We have the Human Rights Commission, and that's funded the same level it was this past year or this year. And also, Beth's done a great job. She's got and you should have seen email, there's a mass in motion. She made a mass in motion grant for $60,000. And there's an event, I want to say.
Tomorrow.
Friday.
Oh, is it Friday?
Yeah. Yep. So, and it's uphill. They're having in the conference room.
Right, it's in the conference room.
It's kind of the kickoff event
Right.
for that mass in motion thing. Regional planning services at the commission, even though their budget, similar to ours, has come down, mostly because it's a little bit tighter getting, especially transportation grants from the Commonwealth, but they're continuing their emphasis on regional planning services to the local communities. And I mentioned the Water Protection Collaborative because we've actually increased the funding for the local programs grant that we have.
Technical assistance.
Exactly, the technical assistance grants that we have in there. It was $150,000 this year, it's going to be $200,000 next year. So there's more of an emphasis on that in their budget. In other regional efforts, we're continuing with the MSW, municipal solid waste, the wastewater and water quality issues that we work with both at the Health Department, at the Water Protection Collaborative, and Cape Cod Commission. At the Health Department, we have public health nursing, the Medical Reserve Corps, and septic battery programming in those programs. Open Cape, of course, is underway, and we've dedicated the public safety building for that purpose up there, so that will be used. And that's where the regional umbrella services, if we have staff in the future, that's where that will be located. And then we continue with the program that we have, and George is actively trying to expand kind of regional health and sanitary inspection services, so we have that as well.
To the towns.
To the towns, yep, to work with the towns to provide that service. So just as an overview, there's the 2013 budget. It's $23,580,850. It's a decrease of 5.6% from this current fiscal year, as I mentioned. Just in terms of an overview of the revenues, both the county tax assessment to the towns and the Cape Cod Environmental Protection Fund tax, the Cape Cod Commission tax, increased 2.5%. Those went up. The deeds excise rate remains the same. We didn't change that. It still continues at $2.70 per thousand. But we expect deeds excise revenues. We did have to pull those down. They're just not there even for the current year, so we're looking at reducing that amount. It goes down from its current level to $7 million. That's a 6% decrease on that. Same with the registry business revenues, the fees and charges that we have. We brought that down 7%. It does still exceed the department's costs, so the registry essentially pays for itself and generates a little bit extra for the county coffers. We have a capital program of just about $1.4 million. We still continue with some significant investments in the capital side on the IT department budget and on the facilities department budget. And there's about $68,000 in there for the health department equipment. And again, no treasury balance funding. It's been a few years now where we don't assume we're going to have any leftovers in the current fiscal year to roll over into the next fiscal year. So we've weaned ourselves off that assumption. Just a little bit of a snapshot on the revenue picture. You see tax revenues, both the deeds tax and the county tax and Cape Cod Commission tax are in that bucket, and that's 55% of our total tax revenues. Then the next biggest part is department revenues. That's the dredge and the health lab, a bunch of other revenues that we get here in the county are about 25%, just under $6 million. So. And that's the expenditures by group. Pardon me if it's a little blurry, maybe it's me. But salaries, of course, and fringe benefits are the biggest piece of our budget. By far, you see salaries 45%, fringe benefits just under 20%. So that's the significant pieces of our budget are people. Just in terms of budget highlights, in the Commissioner's office, we're continuing to fund the Arts Foundation. There is $30,000 in there with a $10,000 assumption this year from the license plate funds. For information technology, I mentioned that we are continuing some investments in the capital program, especially in the wide area network, the network we have here at the county that links us all together. And we did provide some additional professional and technical services funding to IT. Capital program for the facilities department, we're continuing to invest in our buildings, $516,000. We're doing some fire alarms, especially in the new jail. We're doing some roof work up there. Also, we're doing some window work up there and in this building. We're continuing to operate the rest area through the license plate funds. Under cooperative extension, as I mentioned, we're doing the regional national hazardous waste program, and we did fund forest fire prevention and the land management mini grants this year at a $20,000 level. It's a little bit down from previous years. We've been around 25, maybe a little bit higher than that on some years.
Do you have any numbers yet on the January license plate revenues?
It was up. I did see numbers, and I just can't remember them off the top of my head. It was up a little bit. It was up about 8%, I would say 10%.
Paul
It was up a little bit.
said that
At the EDC meeting?
Yeah. So it's actually been pretty good. The license plate's been pretty consistent. There's a couple times where it looks like it's dropping, but then it seems to bounce back the next month. I think it more has to do with who needs to re-up every month. Or there must be a cycle of how many have to re-up rather than whether it's people, whether people are doing
2
less.
years. It's every 2 years, and it depends on when you get your license.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah.
On January.
Yeah, so they're good. I think usually February is a slow month, and there's a couple of slow months in there. Registry of Deeds, we are continuing the staffing efficiencies there. Jack's been very good at doing more with less over there. So we've been very lucky with that. We've actually been able to pull that budget down a little bit, and that's sort of reflective on the revenues that we've seen from them. But so that's good. As I mentioned, there's some health lab testing equipment in there, $68,700 in the capital budget. I mentioned
Excuse me,
yes,
on the health testing equipment, did we get an estimate from George as to what revenue that would produce?
he's working on that total, and I just heard from Gungman, I got an email yesterday, that this year that you expect to generate about $500,000 total of the whole. And George has said, once they're able to move into the new space, with the new equipment that they're acquiring from the money we provided them this year, which is about $300,000, they're going to buy the I can't think of the stuff that they're testing.
It goes to the level of the interrupters and...
Thank you very much, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He said that
hormone
one enhanced
interrupters
their
and
budget,
that's-
their revenues, because there's a sort of a need, there's a need for that service out there, especially at the town levels. So I mentioned the Human Services Department, the Mass in Motion grant, which is terrific. That's a $60,000 grant that Beth got. Children's Cove, we supported them to the level basically that we did last year, and that does include the Department of Family Services funding of $65,000. That is included in there. We also included the same level of funding as we did for this current year for the Meals on Wheels program with Elder Services, and that's $75,000. And then public safety, we continue to fund the remaining unfunded pension liability piece. That's a little bit over $1 million this year. As you know, that's part of the sheriff takeover legislation. We'll be paying that off, but it certainly is a lot less than what we used to contribute, which was the maintenance of effort.
Okay, is that the 4% that's indicated in one of these pie charts?
It might be, Bill. I don't remember off the top of my head. It might be in the budget.
Yeah,
document.
sheriff's pension, 4%.
Yeah, 4%. Yep.
Gotcha.
I mentioned that we are enhancing the municipal support initiative for the Water Protection Collaborative to $200,000, up from $150,000 this year. So we were able to do that, even though overall the Water Protection Collaborative budget came down. Cape Cod Commission, I mentioned, we're continuing to enhance local planning service capabilities, and I mentioned also that they are doing more with less. They're getting a little bit less money from Mass Highway this year, so their budget has actually come down as well. And on the shared cost side, we are funding a 2% COLA for our staff. Most of our staff, I think it's about 80%, are at their maximum step. We have an 8-step program, 8 steps available for people when they start, and they're almost everyone's at their max. So 2% COLA is really helpful for people because that's really all they get over the course of the year. And we did put in the appropriate reserve lines. You know, we have 2 lines for reserves that we can tap throughout the year by going back to the assembly and getting a transfer. But we put $20,000 total. It's $10,000 in each line. So that's it. And we sort of look forward now to working with the assembly on their review schedule. That is out. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I know Janice sent it out, and I believe they're starting on the 29th. And then they'll meet weekly in terms of doing the budget review. And that's it.
Okay, this is due over there on the 6th.
It's
No,
today.
it's due today.
Today.
It was
due today.
So, any discussion, comments? I mean, we've been doing
No, I
this
think it looks
since
pretty good.
January 3rd. Some of us look like we're not familiar with the aspects of it.
I think the PowerPoint is very useful, and I'm glad that that's put
Yeah, I
together.
think it is too.
Yeah, and I thought the letter, when I looked at it, online, it seemed to cover all of the issues that we wanted to cover. So I think we're presenting a balanced budget, one that takes into account what we know, and that we can. I would have a high degree of confidence that personally I could speak to the integrity of the budget with regard to accomplishing the things that we can accomplish based upon what we know.
Than what we have. Jerry?
I just got a little curious about how you managed to cut the budget along with some of the good increases. I mean, is it just here and there and patchwork, or?
It's a little, yeah, the answer is yes. It's a little bit of everything. There's a couple of things that we were a little bit lucky with. As you know, health insurance reform kicked in, or will be kicking in for July 1st. We had talked earlier about setting some of that money. I don't think we're just in a position to do that right now. So we're going to save some money on health insurance reform. But there was also a number of departments that came back that were able to cut their budget fairly significantly. So that also presented the ability to cut the budget without inflicting too much pain, I guess. And then there's other cases where really what we did was go through line by line and nickel and dime a lot of things. Pretty much, Jerry, restore the funding level from what was requested for 2013 back to what they got for this fiscal year, 2012. So it's a little, you sort of be thinking, all the tools, when you cut the budget, sort of have to come out of the toolbox when you do it.
But you don't feel that there's any loss of service?
I don't think so, no. I'm pretty confident that we're able to do what we've been doing.
What is it? What do you mean by losses?
Lots of
Cutting back
services.
services,
Certainly,
cutting out
yeah,
Well,
their cutbacks.
There is something significant in each one of the departments had new initiatives that they were recommending, and I believe, in my own opinion, if they're in the unlikely event that we saw an improvement in revenue, it wouldn't be a case of looking at the increase in revenue and then looking at potential applications of it, because I think that our department managers have suggested what I call some very worthwhile programs that, that weren't accepted. the addition of staff, for example, and some of the other items in terms of expansion of activities were all put aside because we were looking at protecting what we had and making sure that we would deliver what we had been doing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No.
So I'll bring that over to the assembly at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, I think, are we all going?
Yeah.
I gotta be over there at 3:30.
And the 3:30, that's the remainder of the finance committee.
Yeah, it's a
that,
continuation of the,
on the health department.
yeah, the health department lab relocation.
Right. Okay, and this is the letter, so,
Is this or whatever?
yeah. So we want to have a motion to approve the minutes
So
of
moved.
the,
I'll second that.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And then a motion to approve the summary of actions.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Any reports?
Yeah.
Bill?
Okay. I got a thank you note from the legislative breakfast over at the YMCA. Remember that was last
Oh,
Thursday?
yes.
Yeah. I went to the Chennai meeting where they did the presentation on homelessness. That was last Thursday. And then later in the afternoon, I went over to I guess it was Sandwich, it's Spalding Rehab, and there were several people that had been recruited by the Mashpee, Falmouth, and I believe Sandwich Chambers of Commerce to come in and talk about suicide prevention in the workplace or businesses. And then, let's see, I went to Human Service, the Human Service of the town, committee, that I represent us on. And they're moving forward in a recommendation that the town council in Barnstable look at addictions being a focus of attention going forward, and they've been collecting information. Yesterday, it was a presentation by a member of the pilot program, and he made a point. If instead of having an adult talk to kids with regard to addiction, if he had someone, he was 33 now, if he had someone that, like him, when he was younger, talk to some 12-year-old kids, it would have had, in his opinion, a bigger impact. And this morning I went to the last executive committee meeting on the budget over the RTA, and although they're looking at, it is a balanced budget, and they are looking at a 9.6% increase, but it's offset by a 9.6% increase in anticipated revenue.
Yes.
No,
No, other revenue.
other revenue.
Okay.
If it was fares,
There'd be a
we only
public
would
meeting.
wish.
Right. We may not want to mention the Cape Selectmen's meeting where we had a legislative breakfast with our state delegation. And when you mentioned the drug addiction, Rep. Randy Hunt from Sandwich
Yes.
is on that committee in the legislature, and they are taking a really hard look because particularly he is on Cape, and they're working together to try to create some type of legislation, perhaps. I'd really say specifically what that would be. But he did mention, as we all know, that the majority of emergency room visits at Cape Cod Hospital are drug related. And so they're really kind of trying to bring this whole issue together at the state level to try to see what they can do to support all the communities in dealing with this issue. The other, that they...
If I just may add to that, one of the points that was made, when we were discussing this issue at the town of Barnstable, was that the emergency room visits, if we have a successful program of, let's say, of fighting addiction, are reduced because of all of the things that, the extra, because they see that as part of a cycle of crime that occurs with regard to supporting, the addictive behavior, not to mention, the contribution that it's making to, some other issues that we're very concerned with, which is suicide ideation and things of that sort.
You probably read where Chris Herron, who used to play basketball for the Celtics, and became a drug user and was extremely addicted and has gone through all that rehab. I think he's obviously, you're never out of rehab, but for 2 years now, he's been drug-free. But he spoke to a lot of students, I know, at the Falmouth High School. we had 600 or 700 people were there. It was unbelievable. And he spoke for an hour. And apparently that's what he's doing now, is going around to the
Yes,
different
I heard him on
schools,
the radio.
trying to help people with those things. And then there's a bill in the Senate, you may have read in the paper, where Terry Murray filed a bill to try to control the physicians, not control them, but to control how prescriptions are written for drugs like oxycodone, Oxycontin, Percocet, all of those.
That was
Because
also mentioned
people
yesterday,
shop, people shop doctors,
Yeah.
and they're trying some kind of a bill to help reduce that shopping of doctors. The other thing that Duke mentioned was that there will be absolutely no new tax this year on anything. Don't even think about it, because it won't happen, because the Speaker and the legislature is just opposed to anything. That means our local option for vacation rentals, timeshares, condos will not go anywhere this year. But we need to be placed in order to be able to get it on the docket for next year. So that means that anybody who doesn't have a current town meeting vote probably should have it on the November town meeting, so that it will be eligible for next year. Because it has to be voted within a certain time frame in order for the legislature to take it up. The other thing they talked about, and I don't know what the language is yet, but Cleon mentioned that they have filed 2 bills related to OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. And he didn't really say what it was, but I think we need to find out from his office, what is the legislature attempting to do to help municipalities with OPEB? I don't know what that is,
I don't know
but
either.
that's something to think about. He also mentioned a couple of bills that they're filing that would give towns the ability to set ambulance fees rather than the state or public health department, and also changing the way reimbursements come from the providers. So if an individual had an ambulance run and had a fee for that, instead of the check going to the individual person, it would go to whoever provided the service. Like if it was an ambulance service from a town that bills for that service, it would go directly there first. Because half the time they say that they go back to the patient and then the bills never get paid. So those are some of the, also I had an email from the Senate President's office yesterday. There's a bill being filed related to NSTAR and changing the way they respond to hurricanes and,
Power outage.
power outages all over the Cape. Certain practices they're going to have to make, such as periodic updates to residents and businesses. Anyway, I have a whole copy of that, and that's something we might want to respond to and write a letter supporting that on behalf of the citizens of the Cape, supporting that kind of legislation. Because that's what's totally missing the last time. NSTAR just kind of moved into the background.
Not
and
just
it was
NSTAR.
very, well, not just NSTAR, all the other utility
Yeah,
companies.
it was a
Yeah, it
big
wasn't
issue.
just NSTAR. It's all of them,
Town
and it
officials.
isn't just NSTAR. That's my report.
Here you go.
How about you?
I can't say I have one.
Okay.
I'll probably think of things next week, but, I don't. I missed both of those breakfasts. I had other
I missed one
conflicts.
of them.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you went to the YMCA because
Yeah.
they did send that out several times. I think they're trying to get some profile and, if I had been able to attend, I would have. So I thought I would, but things changed. So I think that's it.
Okay. Any other new business? No?
I just have.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Remember, we had been asked for an easement in Truro at Highland Road, South Highland
Right.
Road.
Mhm.
And that was for purposes of the developers constructing the sewage treatment and upgrade of the sewage facilities for the campground that's up there. I just got back from Bob Troy, a letter saying he's the only thing, that everything needs to be looked at. He's fine with it, so may I ask you to vote to approve the easement? They have the paperwork.
Okay, well, we've already had the discussion.
We've had the discussion.
Right.
coming back.
Or moving.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
And then we've already had this discussion, as you recall, a while back. Lou Cataldo had let us know that we needed a new mold for the maquette for the
Oh,
Mercy
yes,
Otis Woman
right.
of the Year. So David Lewis put that together. We're getting ready to put that together. And the charge of that will be $600. So I just need you to approve a transfer of the funds. I didn't have it in the account that I needed, so that I can move the money and pay the bill.
Is this different from what else George was at?
Yeah, Alice George asked us to provide, and we have in the past, $200 for the overall function. Usually I think they use it to clean the, whatever they use it for. So we've done that.
Okay. I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you. I think that is all I have.
Yep.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor,
Wow.
say aye. Adjourned.